everyone, today I'm gonna do an in-depth review of an instrument that I relatively recently got and it made a big impression on me. While I was doing research before I decided to go for it, it was somewhat difficult to actually find certain bits of info and certain complete bits of info. So I wanted to do actually a review of this really cool bass guitar for any future users so that they can maybe find some of this info useful. Let's dive right in. First, I'd like to say just a couple of words about the case itself. It does not come included with the bass, so you have to purchase it separately, but this is one of the cases that's recommended for the bass. And as you can see, these 4 cushions here, one at the bottom, 2 at the sides, and 1 at the middle here, they're all modular, so you can detach them and attach them via Velcro. And that's really cool, because then you can just simply take it off, there's the Velcro, put it right there or put it wherever you want it. And they are not just sponges, they're like memory foam, and that really works good. So it ensures that you can customize the shape of your bass to make sure that it holds it really nice and tight. There's a nice soft cushion here for the body, nice soft cushion there for the head. Then there's of course the compartment and a single key with the lock there. Everything is nice and plushy and lovely quality, nice and sturdy, and I actually wouldn't have any problems traveling with this guy. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Ibanez BTB 846 SC is a 6-string bass with a neck-through body construction. It has a 35-inch scale, 24 frets. It has a single cutaway and 2 soap bar pickups. Has passive pickups and active electronics, and it has some special things that make it a fairly interesting instrument, especially for the price range. That's the general overview of it, but before we dig into the sound examples, let's take a look in depth what makes this instrument so special. This is an instrument that from the moment you see it, touch it, feel it and play it, it oozes quality, sturdiness and all of these things that are beyond its price range. The build quality is absolutely spot on. The sturdiness of the entire instrument is top-notch. The weight of it is pretty much perfectly balanced, and the finish, which usually I'm not a fan of a semi-gloss, but in this case this one really won way over, because the combination of woods, the shapes and the structure of it, it just flows from one to another, and the execution is really done nicely. So absolutely top-notch work there. There are a couple of defining features that you really can't miss when you take a look at this bass, and of course the most defining one is the body itself. From the get-go, the thing that will get your attention most is the upper horn and the super deep single cutaway for the playing hand. The construction of the body is 2 wings on the side of the neck through. The top itself does not cover the neck through section, so it's just the wings on the sides. And the wings themselves, they are multi-layered and they consist out of 3 main types of woods. First we have the poplar burl top, which is stained nicely into a color that they call deep twilight, hence the name DTL at the end. And that's a thin layer. It's not veneer, but it's a relatively thin layer of the poplar burl. But it's deep enough that you can actually see lovely structure and some flame, and it's really gorgeous. There's so many intricate details in that one that you can just, on a good lighting day, you can just kind of get lost in the details and the flow and the structure of it. After that poplar burl, we have a thicker layer of ash, which is not stained at all. After that goes okoume. Here comes a little bit of weird discrepancy. On the Ibanez US site, it says that it's mahogany, but on the international website, it says that it's okome wing body. And the okome is the exotic wood that's being used now, or for a long time now, but is becoming more popular as a substitute for mahogany, which is excellent. It has similar types of properties, but it's much lighter and less dense. Therefore, it is brighter, definitely sounds brighter, but more importantly, it looks different. So there's no mistaking it for mahogany at all. That being said, the wood itself has lovely texture. It reminds of mahogany, but as I said, it's less dense, it's a little bit lighter, more orangey, less reddish. It resonates very nicely, and I think that it picks up good harmonics. I think that they made a good combination of the woods so that when they are all put together, that it all works very nicely. The overall impression is, for me, something that's memorable and absolutely beautiful. That's the construction of it. Now the shape, as I said, it has the pronounced upper horn, which is connected to the 12th fret and down, and then we have this really deep single cutaway for the playing hand. These are not just aesthetics, they are function. Upper horn is there for added sustain because it's connected to the neck and it just provides enhanced sustain. It really does, it's not a gimmick, it really works. And the deep cut, single cut, is there to provide seamless playing, which again really works. And it doesn't end there. When you actually flip it over on the back side, it has this curved backside panel which actually blends and has this amazing curve that goes from the single cutaway all the way into the upper horn with the single purpose of it offering you super comfortable playing conditions even when you're all the way down to the 24th fret. So regardless of the size and the width and the sheer dimension of a 6-stringed bass instrument, it's unbelievably comfortable to play, and this configuration is unlike anything else that I've ever played, literally. And it takes you a little bit of time to get used to tell your thumb that it doesn't have to go to the side. Once you do get used to it though, a negative is then you go to other types of instruments and then the stuff that didn't bother you actually starts bothering you. So it's definitely a properly designed and beautifully sculpted curved backside that's beautiful form, but above all else it's perfect function, and it's just unbelievably comfortable to play. While we're talking about the body, let's talk a little bit about the hardware. The hardware it's super nice quality, but the thing that I really love about it is the finish of it. It's something that they call Cosmo Black, and it's definitely not black. It's more like gunmetal type of high gloss finish, and it suits the deep twilight of the top of the body. It suits it absolutely perfectly. In combination with the black pickups and everything else, it's just a very nice combination, and I love the touch that they actually bothered not to just slap on black hardware, because they could have, it would have worked, but they actually figured out, hey, let's make something that works and ties this deep twilight color all together. The bridge style is monorail, which means that every single string is connected to the body individually, and that offers really enhanced clarity of each individual string, especially when playing chords. You can definitely hear it when you start recording this bass. It's a substantial type of improvement over one piece of bridge. String spacing is slightly wider than on a standard bass. It's 17 millimeters, and that, while it is a wider neck, definitely, it actually provides nice control over your tone and playing, which is super important with the 6-string bass, because you have to mute your strings and you have to have complete control over which strings are doing what. The tuners, they're standard Ibanez tuners. Sometimes some guitars are a little bit, loosened up and you have to tighten them. In this case, no, there's no dead zone. It's all very nice, precise. They hold the tune, of course, but more importantly, you're able to fine-tune your bass to pretty much perfection, which is something that's really, really important for me. The jack itself is not a normal jack. That's some type of a lock jack, super secure type of thing, which is nice and fancy. It's supposed to protect from accidental plug outs, which is nice and dandy, but I find it a little bit too restrictive. Every time I need to unplug, it's an event. You have to flip over the bass and then press and hold the button and then pull the jack out, and it doesn't go easily, so it does its job really, really well, but maybe a little bit too well for my taste. So now on to the neck. The neck is a 5-piece maple and walnut neck through body type of construction. The neck shape is extremely comfortable to play, considering that it's a 6 wide string spaced bass. It is surprising how easy this thing is to play. It's actually far easier to play than some 4-string basses that I've known, simply because of the shape of the geometry. The overall geometry of the bass just works. The neck shape is the nice flat thin D Ibanez D type, the fretboard. It's made from Yatoba, which is another replacement type of wood that's being used instead of rosewood or ebony, and it has an abalone dot inlays, which are really pretty, especially when the sun hits them. You get some nice shines and nice depth. For me, the most important part about this neck is the combination of the thin D profile that the Ibanez has and almost flat fingerboard, which means that it's super easy to play despite the size and the string spacing. Another important part that just cements the construction of this instrument is that the neck has a 0 fret. What is a 0 fret, you might ask? Well, most of the instruments have a nut and then fret 1, right? Well, this guy has a nut, a 0 fret, and then fret 1. That 0 fret is incredibly important, first of all, because it allows that the open string tone sounds exactly the same like any other pressed fret, because it's also lying on that 0 fret, not on the nut. Second of all, that 0 fret allows you to do unbelievably low action, which is still playable, doesn't catch anything, and unlike any other 5 or 6 string bass that I've played before, the lower B string, because of that 0 fret, doesn't go which is usually like just hummy or buzzy. You don't know what to do with it on other basses. This one, it is super well defined and super playable, and it just comes through in the mix. Now, all of these things considered, the neck through construction and the 0 fret, monorails at the back, and the overall geometry, how perfectly it's made, allows you to create unbelievable type of playing action. So if you want it super low for tapping or anything like that, you definitely can do that, and the wide neck actually gives you quite a bit of clarity, especially for tapping. If you want to raise it, the action of the bridges, they can go quite up and they can go quite down, so you have a full range that you can set up pretty much any type of action that you would like on this one, and it's much easier than other types of instruments that I've worked with to actually get the desired result. You get there much quicker. Pickups are Bertolini BH2 pickups, and these are custom-made Bertolinis for Ibanez, and Ibanez has been using them for this whole series. And these are quite interesting. The tone is not in your face, it's not super overblown or anything like that, and the first impression might be it's a little bit weaker, or what is this, or blah blah blah. But actually they offer a lot more than you would see at first glance. The clarity and the dynamic range is really, really good. They're a dual coil full blade configuration, and they're passive, but they go through the electronics, of course. And that actual combination is calibrated, I think, really, really nicely. There's very little interference between the strings, which means that even a fully open 6-string chord on a 6-string bass with open B, everything will shine through. And with the height adjustments, you can actually adjust how much punchiness and how much of a dynamic range you want. One of the things is that the range of the height that's allowed for the both neck and the bridge pickup, both are BH2s, is quite large. So you can put them super low and you can put them super high, which is not the case in all instruments. It's very flexible and you can fine tune it to your liking perfectly. Now, since we're talking about the pickups go into the electronics, so we can talk about the controls that are on board. Some of it is fairly standard, but some of it is upgraded from the previous BTB versions, and the upgrade is quite nice. You have your volume control, you have your pickup balancer, and then you have your bass, mid, and treble boost and cut, with a little switch, and that switch is the 3-band mid EQ selector. So you can choose where your mid EQ will be, and you can choose between 250 Hz, 450 Hz, or 700 Hz. In combination with these pickups, it actually works brilliantly, and it's something that is something that surprised me a lot. Not just the 3-band switcher, which is awesome, but the overall combination of the tone control itself and the electronics. Usually I just set my bass to 0 and I just play with the pickup balance control and do the tone on the little Mark 250 because it's super flexible. However, what happened here with this one is the other way around. I kept leaving my amp on flat 0 or 6 o'clock, right? And I kept dialing in the tone on the bass itself. Usually the bass, treble, mid cuts are kind of just set in stone, and you either like it or you don't, and it just doesn't work. But here, because you have this EQ, mid EQ switching between the 3 frequencies, and the peak is balanced nicely, and the bass and the treble curves are balanced nicely, and they also complement each other with the pickups themselves, the end result is that you basically get this fantastic instrument with the wood and the construction and all of these things that we talked about as a blank canvas, and then you get these controls to, like a palette, to paint your tone. And it's something that I haven't experienced yet in the instruments that I have. In all of the ones that I've been playing so far, it's been the other way around. This is the first one that just wants me to shape the tone this way, and you can achieve so many different types of tones. It's just balanced very nicely, and it's super versatile. So it's something that surprised me very much, and something that I love a lot about this instrument. It comes by default with the Dario NY-XL 32130 series, which are supposed to be really good, and actually they quite are. I don't know how old they are, you never know with a new guitar, but they sound really good. They're not buzzy, they're not springy like a super new strings, but they have a good sustain and really clear type of sound. Quite good tone and really good tension on a 35-inch scale. So we'll see how they actually behave when they last, and I'm gonna try, when it comes time to actually switch the strings, I'm gonna use the same type of strings as well to see how they actually work when they're brand new. For the conclusion. And before I start drawing the conclusion, I just want to say what the price range of this base is. So wherever I've looked, it's always around the $1,000 plus minus 10% mark, depending on what kind of deal you find and everything. But remember, that comes without a case. Case is about $120 or $150. Again, depends where you find it. So we're talking about $1,100 roughly for the whole package. Not a small number by any means. And then we have to actually dig deeper and see what are the pros and what are the cons of this base. Obviously it's mine and I've expected it for a long time and I love it dearly, but I'll start with the cons, and I had to spend a lot of time to try and find some cons so that I'm not biased, and I managed to find some. So here we go. 6 strings can be a con for some. Why? Because it's definitely not for beginners. If you haven't played a 6-string before, even if you've played a 5-string before, it's a different ballgame, because muting and tone control has to be on a whole other level. This involves different types of techniques that you're using from both the plucking and the playing hand, and it's definitely something that I would advise that you first get used to a 4-string bass and then you get on to the 6-string bass, so that you can actually experience the full range of stuff, if that's your thing. So yeah, 6 strings can definitely be a con, because especially with the added sustain of the entire instrument, they tend to get out of control if you don't control them and if you don't mute them consciously. String spacing can also be one other con, because this is not a small bass and this is not a small neck by any means. So if your hands are somewhat smaller, it can be a physical obstacle to actually reach comfortably. Despite how good the neck and the cutaway and everything else is, it can become physically uncomfortable simply because it's too wide. So maybe if that's the case, it's perfectly reasonable to assume that the wide string spacing on a 6-string bass won't physically fit to some people, which is perfectly normal. So it's something that you should be mindful as well. The semi-gloss finish allows for the structure of the wood to shine through, which means that you get an uneven type of finish. Now this is something that I absolutely love, but I think that it's a matter of taste and a personal preference. So some people may actually not like that, and I advise you to actually check that out. I've included a lot of super detailed images here so that you can actually check this out and maybe see if this is something that you like or not. For me personally, I like it, but some people might not like it. Now here's an actual no preference type of con. There is no switch for turning off the electronics. Why? I have no idea. I mean, why would that not be there? No clue. But it should be an easy mod. If I am up for it at some point, maybe I'll do it. But the honest truth is that it sounds so good that I actually don't care about that at all, because that electronics and the EQ and all of that stuff together, as I said before, is really good. But some people may think that and may find that a serious flaw. The secure jack is too secure. There is no way that you can unplug it one-handed. Absolutely no way. And there's just super easy way to get yourself hurt while trying to do that one-handed. So you always have to employ both hands in strange angles and blah. It looks pretty. And another con is that it does not come with the case by default, and it doesn't say that anywhere. I had to dig high and low to actually find it, and in the end I had to ring the distributor to ask the question, and he had to go further and then confirm. It's not mentioned absolutely anywhere, and you would kind of expect that this type of instrument of this class in this price range comes with a case. That being said, you simply have to take into account the cost of the case, add it together and think of it like that. Alright, so now for the pros. Well, the overall quality is, for that price range, mind-blowing. It seriously feels like a much more higher end type of an instrument. Everything is absolutely spotless, literally perfect. And I've been like going over it like crazy, and it's just absolutely perfect, and that's amazing. The design and looks and the decision that went into shaping the overall design of this instrument are just spot on, especially the hardware color, how it matches the top, the deep twilight. Really gorgeous, and it's something that I just can't get enough of. Very often when we're watching Netflix or something like that, I would just have the bass. I wouldn't even play it, but just have it in my lap and just kind of hold it, because it's such a beautiful type of an object. It's like a sculpture. It's just amazing. So it's something that's a huge plus. 6 strings for me personally are a big plus, because I've always wanted a 6-string bass, and this is my first 6-string bass that I've owned. I've tried and played several others, and I didn't like the narrow spacing, which leads me to another plus, for me at least, which is the wide string spacing, because it allows me full control over tone, and it gives me a lot of flexibility when playing. So that's something that's super important for me, and I really like it for that. The deep cutaway, the depth, the shape, and the curves that are in there are absolutely perfect. You will never ever touch it. You will never ever feel it. It will never be in the way. The curved backside that just follows along from that deep cutaway is absolutely spot on. That all together allows for an amazing playing comfort that I've never experienced on any guitar or a bass or anything like that. It's just a whole new level of comfort playing for me. Monorail bridge, I have it on another Ibanez bass, but that's 4+3 strings. We'll talk about that one day soon. But on this one, because it's a 6-string, it does actually make a big difference in tonal clarity. So that's a huge plus for me as well. Plus the flexibility of how you can angle each string and adjust the height of it. And the intonation is super long, so you can get it absolutely pinpoint perfect intonation to get perfect setup for your bass. So a big plus on that. Sound overall, the sustain, clarity and sound definition, because of all these things, is just perfect, especially when you start putting it into the mix and starting to play around with what you've recorded. It's just so easy to put into the mix to sit well and remain defined. You don't have to do so much at all, and you can just dial in the tone that you need, record it, slap on a little compressor, and you're done. And it just sounds awesome. And yeah, that just leads me to sound of this thing is not in your face, and when you just start playing it, I felt a little underwhelmed, and then I continued playing it, and then I started to understand, oh, this is a different type of instrument. This is not an instrument that goes ta-da. It's like, I'm this and I can only do this or that. Most of the instruments are like that. This one is like, hello, what would you need? Can you give me this? Yes. Can you give me that? Yes. Can you give me this? It's just a blank canvas of an instrument with an amazing tonal palette at your disposal. It's everything I wanted it to be and a lot more. Basically, the way it looks, it sounds a lot better than that as well. I'm just gonna leave you with a couple of examples of playing and how it actually sounds, because we've heard examples of completely flat, and these are examples with some effects and some compression and just how it would sound when it's a little bit more processed, like it would be in a mix of a song or in a real world kind of scenario. I hope you found this video useful. If you have, please like and subscribe. It does mean a lot. Thank you for watching. I wish you happy holidays and a happy new year, and see you next year. Bye.